particular who has been a leader in the business, who has led different people who are still with the firm, have moved on, what do you think your own legacy would be?
What would you want
kind
to be
of
remembered?
question is
Like
that?
if your name comes
What
up,
would you like to
Tola,
remember for?
like
No, there are
my
two
God,
things
Tola.
now. You have the one for the company, then you have the one for me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm not the one that started the company itself, so I'm not.
No, so no, but in 10 years, what would you want Mixta to actually be remembered for?
That's question A.
Okay.
Question B.
Question B is,
That one
okay,
comes to
Tola has
question B.
moved on now.
Yeah. So
Like when Tola's name
Obviously,
comes
some
up.
people already have new jobs for me. There's
Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of your favorite podcast, To Be Quite Honest. I remain Big Ben, and with me is my very beautiful co-host.
Noma, hi everyone. Feels good to be back.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be back here. There's so
Yes.
much to discuss.
Actually,
Yeah. Today, we're talking about something that is completely different from anything we've spoken about
I agree.
this season. The topic today is across time zones, lessons on leadership and legacy. Now, to discuss a topic like this, we will not just go to the roadside and pick anybody.
No, we had to bring in
Yeah.
the big guys.
We had to bring in someone who has experienced different time zones, someone
Yeah.
who has walked across different time zones,
Yeah.
someone who can even speak languages across different time zones,
I agree.
So, if I tell you who this person is, I'm looking at him right now and he's looking at me too. Anyway, just a little bit about him. He has worked in Barcelona. He's worked in Barcelona, not the football club, the city of Barcelona itself. He's worked in Senegal, in West Africa, and now he's in Lagos, Nigeria. He's gathered lessons that, we all can benefit from, from working across, the different time zones, across the different cultures, working with different people. And I would like to just bring him on. Let him even tell us a little bit about him in English and maybe any other language he would like to introduce himself in. So, with us today is none other than the Chief Commercial Officer, Mixta Africa, and the person of Mr. Tola, Akinsulire. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Tola.
Thank you very much. Buenos dias, mis amigos. Yes,
This is the content I signed up for. Yes.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here with everybody. It's always good to hang out with you. I think this is my second time here, so
Yes.
look forward to as interesting a time as we had the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is your second time. I was going to tell Ben that he missed that out. How does it feel being back on our seat?
Well, it just means that I'm a sucker for punishment. After my first torture, I decided to come for another one. Yeah.
They say the reward for hard work is more work. So I guess the first one you did an amazing job, and we think we'd like to feature you again. So today we're going to be unpacking your experiences across the different environments where you have worked. So Noma, why don't you,
Kickstart.
yeah.
Okay, so Tola, thank you again for gracing us with your presence for the second time. So we'd like to begin. I'll just ask, just to ease you into the conversation, nothing to.
Take my torture slow.
So you've lived and worked in Barcelona, Senegal, and now Nigeria. And which of these places would you say has, changed you the most? And how?
Okay, that's a rather interesting question. Now, I think the best way in which I can look at that question is tell a bit of a story.
Yeah.
I think it was when I was in Senegal that myself and a couple of other similar type people that we've lived across different countries, and we were asking ourselves, what culture do we really carry? Is it the culture of our home countries or the culture of the countries where we've lived in? And we just realized that effectively we've created more or less a third culture for ourselves, an amalgam of all the different cultures that we've lived and experienced. So if you ask me which of them has influenced me the most, I would say all of them. And through all of them, I've been able to filter them and more or less create a unique culture that represents the best of all the different experiences that I've had the privilege of living across different countries.
That's a beautiful response.
Yeah.
Man. That's a beautiful response. You did not tell us it's Senegal or it's,
It's a diplomatic answer.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that I actually prefer... I will not say this.
No, you have to.
Then I get into trouble with my French friends. Don't worry. I'll just keep
You
this
actually
one.
prefer living in Nigeria.
I won't say anything. I don't want to get into trouble with my French friends. So let's
On a
just...
light note, though, do you wear trials like this when you were in Senegal, when you were in Barcelona? Were you getting your tailor to send them over to you?
Yeah. Okay. So in Senegal actually has their trads.
Yeah.
So for your information, this is actually a Senegalese trad.
Whoa.
wow.
Made this in
Oh, wow.
Senegal. So this is a
Ah.
Senegalese trad. In Spain, okay, as you can imagine, they didn't have a Spanish
Yeah.
trad.
Trad.
So what I used to look forward to summer, because summer was one of the few times of the year whereby you could really express yourself wearing your trads. The other times of the year, especially when it is winter, you wear those thick jackets and you just put
Yeah.
everything under. So nobody actually sees that. So
You're wearing a nice outfit underneath.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, from walking across all of these locations, what's the biggest culture shock you've experienced? What's that thing you sound like, what?
Okay, so I think maybe for me, the best way to actually explain this to sort of give you context and why I didn't really experience sort of a radical culture shock was up until my second year undergrad. I was actually planning to be a missionary, just enter into one lost jungle and just find some lost tribe in some remote part of the world. So, psychologically and mentally for the first few years of my teenage years and yeah, towards just as I was getting 20, I was already thinking I was going to go into some jungle. I remember, I think it was my final year after I warn myself of that idea that I was going to enter into a jungle. When my close friend actually said, Tola, it's interesting that he said he thinks that I was actually training to be a monk. That even though I'm no longer training to be a monk, but the old monastic lifestyle is still part of me. So, that sort of background helped me to sort of be like a good observer when I entered any culture. So first thing I told myself is that they were going to be different. So since they were going to be different, I wasn't going to expect them to behave the way in which I was going to behave. And I was going to adapt as much as I could adapt to whatever it is. So it wasn't so much of a shock. I think it was more of me having to learn to be patient with myself, to adapt to the different aspects of their culture that I could incorporate to myself and into my way of living. And I would say there are lots of beautiful aspects of every single culture that you can incorporate into your own repertoire, creating a whole new culture for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, so but I don't think you've answered that. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
I was on Twitter this morning and I saw a lady posted that she traveled to Lithuania
Okay.
and she walked past a place that was like their national library.
Mhm.
And she said behind that building was their version of their own Aso Rock,
Okay.
in quotes. Said at first she was scared to take picture because knowing the Nigerian, knowing how it is down here, someone would have come to arrest her. But, she asked someone to, can you give me a shot? The person gave her the first one and, the person kept asking, do you want more? You're like, do I want more in front of? Do you understand? So that's...
Okay, I get where you're
Yeah.
coming from.
Yeah.
So the only shock I can really say that still brings very much in my head was, I think, was it like the first week I was working in Spain?
Okay.
And then lunchtime, I come out of the office and I couldn't believe I actually saw shops that looked like they'd never opened that day at all. Because what would happen is that lunchtime, unlike, typical when you lunch, everybody's still
Yeah.
working. They actually shut down. So from like 2 to 4, you actually have a number of shops and everything that are actually closed. And then when you go back there like 4:30, they open again like everything. So for me, I would say yes, that was the first thing I had to adapt to. So if I needed to do anything that had to involve going to those shops, I had to tell myself that, okay, I have to do it before break. Because during break, there's nobody who's going to be open. So yes, that was, I would say. And I think the other thing was, yes, there are supermarkets. Unlike here, whereby on a Sunday you can actually walk into a supermarket and find it open.
Yeah.
Sunday public holidays, their supermarkets are closed.
Mm.
They take living a restful life very, very serious. So that, yes, in terms of discovering a whole new experience and seeing a whole new way of life and adapting myself to it, yes, that was one of those things.
So that's for Barcelona, no
Yeah.
culture shock in Senegal. Because I know the first time I went to Senegal, it was I was going for holiday. So
Okay.
I had packed all my holiday outfits, ready to just, be skimpy. Let me just say I was ready to be on holiday. And then I got there, it was very cold. I was like, Jesus Christ. So I was like shocked at how, like I don't know what I thought. I've lived in Nigeria for so long and then you travel and you're still in Africa and it's that cold. You're
West
wondering,
Africa.
you get like, so what was it for you in Senegal? And then it gets very hot.
Yeah. So the one thing which you have not added to the repertoire of the story of Senegal is it's also very dusty.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
They're brown sands.
yeah, there's no way you which you can survive your apartment without cleaning it regularly because you're gonna have loads and loads of dust on it. The other thing which I found interesting, I'm sorry, it still has to do with the supermarket story. The other thing which I found interesting was that a lot of their supermarkets open till almost like 12 midnight. So, for example, I mean, I could easily just go out like 11 p.m. Oh, I forgot to buy this. I could go out to the supermarket and you could get that from the supermarket. Yeah. But the bigger shock, so when I first got to Senegal, I didn't have a car. So, for like you're used to everywhere else, you get an Uber and everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it. There was no Uber. They didn't have any Uber service or whatever. And then the taxis that I found, if you remember when we were growing up, those
Yellow
jalopy taxis
yeah.
whereby you literally use your hand to wind down and all those sort of things. Yeah, those were the kind of taxis that I had to use. But it was much later that you started having things like car hailing services coming to Senegal. But I think for the first few months that I lived there before I got a car, I had to get used to the fact that I would stand on the side of the road, wait for a taxi to come. And when that taxi comes, you just sit comfortably and you have to be very careful that the seatbelt that you're about to put is not
working.
just... No, not that it's not working. It's working, but it's just that the dust... Since the guy is not warmed up, the dust does not stain your shirt. So, you just stylishly try to use that. So all those sort of experiences, for me, it's just like I use it as I'm collecting stories. Okay, instead of complaining, I just use another opportunity to just collect stories.
Yeah, gathering memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. But are you back? Are you happy to be back here now?
Hey, I was born and raised, like Will Smith would say, born and raised in Philadelphia. So I was born and raised here. There's no way in which I won't be happy at any point in time to be back in the homeland.
All right, great. We're happy to have you back too.
Yeah,
but there's a question I want to ask you. Some time ago, very recently, I don't know who it is. I think it's Femi Anikulapo Kuti. Traveled to the US with his crew, and then one or two people escaped from there. So you've had to move.
When you say escape, what do you mean? Like ran away?
The guy ran away.
They don't want
he
to
did not come back to Nigeria with them.
Not unusual.
Yeah, which is not unusual. But for you have worked in Barcelona, you've worked in Spain, Lagos, all of this over a decade with the same company. Why have you not bailed as many Nigerians would?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, interesting choice of question. Asking me why I've not built. So this goes more to my own personal philosophy.
Yeah.
So to the point which you raised, I remember when I was in Spain. So just to give you a bit of context, when I lived in Spain, I actually lived in Spain like an expatriate.
Okay.
So take that as you want to interpret it. But I lived in Spain like an expatriate. And I remember having a conversation with someone. The person said, oh, did the company make you sign any bond or whatever or something? I said, no, the company didn't make me sign any bond. And I was like, you kidding? They didn't make you sign anything? For me, I think I've always believed that I have a responsibility to whatever commitment I give at any point in time. So there is a basis in which I was sent to there. And I believe that I owed the institution I was working with the integrity of my word to hold on to my word. And that, for me, the value of my reputation is my word. I want to be that kind of person that if I tell you that, oh, it's sunny outside, you don't even need to come out and check out the sun. You just believe that if Tola has said it's sunny outside, then it definitely must be sunny outside. So that's really the basis of what has kept me through all these transitions and holding to whatever commitments in which I have made. Yeah.
This is key. This kind of loyalty is very rare today.
Very
Many
rare.
People would go into Barcelona and be like, Europe. Yeah, Europe, now maybe this, Wow.
But honestly, no. So that's.
I mean, no wonder you have risen the way you have risen.
No, Tola's a great guy.
Yeah.
Well, so let's dive a bit into Mixta.
Okay.
Yeah.
So many people think Mixta is just a real estate company, either selling house or land. But why don't you walk us through a Mixta community that you actually see?
Okay. So I think it's always good when there are two parts in which I'll try to explain this. I'll try to explain it in terms of the sort of stories that were created for some of us when we were growing up. Now, I remember I was joking with someone that, hey, it's interesting that as a parent, I'm having to organize play dates for my kids at a point in time. Yeah. That when I was growing up, I didn't have to organize any play dates. I just get up, just go down the street, go and hang out with this. I had friends in which Saturday morning, I knew my parents know after breakfast, I'll go and hang out with this person. It's lunchtime. Lunchtime, you decide who and where it is that you want to.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a sense of nostalgia within some of us in Mixta that, okay, there was that community life that
Mm.
existed. And is there a way in which you can do a development that captures that community life, that you can reimagine what used to exist in
Yeah.
the past?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second aspect, which is a little bit more futuristic, and that is taking lessons from some of the stronger institutions and stronger companies. So, like, for example, uh, we took learnings in terms of understanding, look, what are the things that really makes for a great development? The ability to have infrastructure that gives peace of mind. That's the most important thing. When you go and everybody's telling you that, we have this infrastructure, and the overarching thing is that, does that infrastructure give you peace of mind? Then the next thing here is this: can you create the kind of lifestyle that, you know, you want to enter an environment, no matter how hard the day is, once you enter that environment, you just have a sort of lowering down of whatever pressure and anxiety. So a combination of all these three. So number one, the nostalgia for the life that we all used to live when we were younger, trying to reclaim that. It's like you're trying to go back to Eden. And then number two, the ability to give infrastructure that gives peace of mind, and then creating that lifestyle that, tones down the noise around everything, is formed the philosophy behind whatever development it is that you have in Mixta. So for Mixta, it's not so much in terms of you're just building a house, you're just slamming out. So sometimes when we like to describe ourselves, we tell ourselves that, look, we're an infrastructure development firm that layers real estate on top of the infrastructure.
That's a beautiful response. And
Yeah.
it just reminded me of a conversation I had with a client who lives at Farah Park. He's been living at Farah Park for, I'd say, probably a decade or thereabout. And, sometimes he just tells me, sometimes his friends tell him, why don't you want to move to VI? Why don't you want to move to Lekki Phase 1? You can afford it. It's like the community that Mixta has built at Farah Park is so difficult for him to detach himself from. And in fact, just this year, he moved to the Gulf Estate, Lakwe Lakes, because he obviously can find that same type of community down there. It's something that most developers don't do. It's something that is not so easy to accomplish. How are we able to, retain that image in our head of how we used to live, and bring that to life today?
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to run us through, like, how do I frame this question? Okay, the question is this. You started by telling us how we reimagine,
nostalgic feeling
feeling from how we used to live, and how that's not commonplace anymore. But we still try to, create those type of communities, right? So as difficult as it is, why do we continue doing that? What's the motivation to continue doing that?
Because we're a sucker for punishment. You decide you want to do everything, which you want to do something that everybody else is not. But yeah, just an aside. But point here is this: you ask yourself, as a developer, what do you want to be remembered for? Yeah, everybody talks about it. What's your legacy and all this stuff? But it's as simple as this: what do you want to be remembered for? The way in which I look at real estate is that real estate is not so much of the physical value that you're able to bring in terms of the physical structure. Is the emotion you're able to evoke. When people mention your name as a developer, talk about your development, the emotions that you're able to evoke. So to the question in terms of why is it that we continue to do that? Because we want to capture that sense of emotional value that, it's more than just money. Do you understand? So let me give you a very simple example. The developments which we do at Lagos Newtown, before we start building the houses, we raise the ground levels by as much as 1.5 to 1 meters. Now, why would you do that? Because that's an additional cost. But what you are trying to transfer to people is peace of mind. So you can imagine Lagos, whereby you have a lot of rainfall, water, flooding, and everything. So if you raise the ground level by as much as 1 to 1.5 meter, that means unless there is super catastrophe in Lagos, it is unlikely that that estate is going to flood. So you tell yourself as a developer that, look, you want to communicate that peace of mind to people every single time. So, people come into your estate, they live in that estate, and they have that intrinsic peace of mind. It's not something which they can buy with money. It's just that feeling, that appeal. So that's the reason why we keep on continuing along this path, because we believe that, look, this is something more valuable than money. The reputation you build for giving people peace of mind, for giving people that unique experience. And it happens across different stratas of it's not just, when we had this, the first thing probably someone is thinking, This is probably for the bourgeoisies, the top 1% of the 1%, but it's not for them. It's
Yeah.
at each particular level, you try to strata whatever it is that can match everybody's pocket.
Yeah. And that actually leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
Because honestly, as Ben and I, we work in Mixta, so we are also like trying to also, be part of the vision and bring it to life. And what we find powerful is how, so I have my cue card, so I'm just, so what we find powerful is how Mixta real estate is accessible. Just like you said, it's not just for the wealthy, but for everyday Africans, from mortgage that help first-time buyers to land options to investment opportunities. So again, you have to walk us through because you sit with the management. You have those meetings. So walk us through how these offerings are opening doors for more people.
How these offerings are opening more doors for people. Ooh. So, okay. So, like I said, one of the things which we try to do at Mixta is we try to focus on giving peace of mind. So, the easiest thing for any developer to do is build property. The hardest thing for a developer to do is build property that people would be able to buy at a pace that is convenient for them.
Yeah.
So, for us, we ask ourselves, so how can you open opportunities to more people beyond just building and building and building? Which is why beyond being a developer, we've also positioned ourselves as a policy advocate in terms of, look, you've got a 28 million housing deficit across the length and breadth of Nigeria. That's actually 50% of housing deficit across Africa. Africa is more than 50% actually. Africa is estimated to be between 51 to 56 million housing deficit units. So Nigeria has a huge one. So what we try to do, we asked ourselves that, look, if we continue at the pace at which we're going, that everybody is building, you're buying, you're building, you're buying, which is one of the reasons why we sort of were one of the people who pushed for the federal government to start something like the MRIF.
Yes.
And tried as much as to support it. So for us, we try to think big picture that, look, beyond just building properties that works for people to like, let's try to get as many people into it. Almost everybody will tell you that, look, over the last few years, inflation has skyrocketed.
It's hard.
Houses that were sold for this, they are now sold for almost like twice the price because of inflation. And so for us at management, we had to start thinking that, okay, what's the whole idea? How can we create more opportunities for people? And that's how we went into the hard work of trying to, drive the federal government, however it is, bring the right set of people, the right people with the right skills into the same room to make sure that this brief came up.
Yeah.
So in terms of expanding opportunities, we've gone beyond just seeing ourselves as someone who delivers those housing. We've seen ourselves as someone who also gives capacity for people to be able to afford those housing.
Yeah.
So and that's the way in which we keep on seeing it. So, some of the people I've had the opportunity of engaging with, they tell me that, this MRIF, it doesn't solve all our problems. I said, yes, the MRIF is not supposed to solve all your problems. It's supposed to solve one problem, accessible and affordable mortgages. There would still be other things which we also, as an institution, will continue to follow up with the federal government on to make sure that, look, you introduce into the market to make housing easy for people, to make it easy for people to actually live in the right type of housing.
Every step we take, every way we live should be filled with peace, joy, and serenity. Now, if you're looking for a community that offers all these with infrastructure and the right amenities for you and your family to thrive, look no further than Mixta Africa Estates. Now, Mixta Africa, over the last 20 years, has basically been provided the kind of community, over 15 estates with 5,000 housing units that people have been thriving in. Look forward to welcoming you in one of our Mixta estates.
All right, so Tola, that was a very interesting perspective you shared. So for the benefit of those who probably have not visited any of Mixta's projects, could you maybe talk about maybe any two projects that you're really, really proud of and why?
Okay, interesting. So I would like to take two projects across two different spectrums. So let me start with the one on the middle income spectrum. That's the Adiva playing fields. Now, the reason why I like that project was it was one of the first projects you were doing for a middle income segment that we were actually able to express the vision of a lifestyle development that we really wanted. So let me give you the context of it. So it's a combination of bungalows and apartments. All in all, the development is about 111 hectares of land, which you're rolling out in phases. Now, when we developed that estate, of course, there's the traditional infrastructure which you did, and like I've explained, we try to raise the levels of the houses so that there's no flooding and that everything drains naturally. Now, one other thing which we did to that development was that we introduced a lake right in the middle of the development. Now, that lake is unique because what we use that lake to do is number one, when it rains, the lake acts as a natural reservoir whereby all the stormwater and everything drains nicely into it. And then what you do is you recycle that water and you use it for, all the typical things you can use it from the house, except anything that has to do with cooking. So effectively, what you're doing is you're reducing the cost of ownership in that development because you're recycling water. And of course, there's the additional benefit. You can actually fish there. So there are actually people who go there to actually fish, take a walk. You understand? So for me, that is what I would call a real lifestyle development for a middle income residential development. I like that project. It's one of those projects that for someone who was just starting middle income was a lovely one. Yet, of course, there's the cream of the crop. That's Lakaway Lakes Golf and Country Estate. Now, everybody sees everything in terms of the golf, all those sort of things. Yeah, but the thing that I really like about it is the philosophy behind the development, some of the things. So, like, for example, when we were doing the developments, we actually try to retain not just the natural vegetation, even the natural drainage channels. So, for example, things like the swamps and everything, we retained a lot of that. And what that effectively means that it is impossible for Lakaway to flood because all those natural drainage, you retain them. In addition to that, by retaining things like the natural vegetation, the bushes, the trees and everything, you effectively reduce the need for people to actually spend money cooling because you've got trees that are acting as buffer, giving you the nice oxygen and, all that sort of thing. So for me, those two developments, they've been able to successfully highlight the philosophy of infrastructure and lifestyle that we want at different cadres for both the middle income and then the big boys. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I'd like to add something to that.
Okay.
I like when you first mentioned Adiva, I smiled because that was the first estate I sold when I joined Mixta.
I see.
Yeah, so
that was actually my project.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was my project.
Wait, you were doing that all the way from Senegal?
No, before
you moved to Barcelona.
Before I moved to Barcelona, I worked on Adiva. So I worked on Adiva projects, point of handing over and things like that.
Oh, that's nice.
Even
Lakaway, I never knew that.
Even Lakaway, when we started Lakaway, I was on Lakaway. All those when we had to start doing all those dredging.
So when all the the machine was sinking, all of that.
All those, I still, interesting. I still have a picture of when, one of the things which we used to do then, now and again, was we would have occasional Saturday barbecue where you'd have all the people that are working on the site and then all of us. So I still have those pictures of those. And, recently I was showing, one of the guys, he's South African. Of course, we had to import some of the skills to do a golf course. And he was in town and I was showing him some of the pictures and he looked at it, he was like, oh, that's my dad. Because his dad too was also on it. So it's good to be able to just relive some of those lovely memories. Hard work, a lot of hard work involved in it.
A lot of hard work. But I'm sure when you look at that estate, you're proud of the hard work that went into it.
Yes, I am. To be honest with you, I remember, this is the pocket that says to be quite honest. So, to be quite honest, I remember when I was in Spain and then I traveled back and then I went to Lacon and I was like, wowzers, Tizazzo, this is beautiful. As in, the vision which you had, it's beautiful to be able to see it
come to life.
Yeah. Some of the hard work, to see some of the hard work actually paying off in terms of having people living in those residences and living the kind of lifestyle you envisioned.
Yeah, I agree because the first time I went to Lakwe, I wasn't working here yet at the time. I went just like, we have the hospitality segment. So I went and then I was posting everywhere and they were like, are you in Nigeria? I wanted to lie and be like, no, I'm in Kenya. But it was mind-blowing. I was taking pictures. My mom kept asking me, where's this place? Come and bring me and your father here. Let's buy a house. She was so happy about because I went with my friends. And then as God would have it, I did NYC and I was posted to Mixta. And when I got there and they're like, I was like, which one is Mixta again? And they said, developers of Lacolix, I was so proud. There was nowhere I went to. Oh, I work in Mixta. They say, "Where's Mixta?" You don't know them. They're the developers of Lacolix. Like it's a very proud establishment, honestly. And every time I tell people that I work with the developers of Lacolix, they only have good things to say.
Especially as a sales, customer-facing person. Let me talk about Adiva first. So
when you made your first
I had
sale,
struggled to sell different products, and then
when you joined, there was
when I joined, in fact, till now, Mixta always has a lot of amazing products on our inventory. But I was pushing a lot, but somehow that period, within Adiva, there was this portion of land that we hadn't sold. And then management had come to say, oh, we're offering this land to real estate developers who wanted to maybe have like a mini estate within the estate. Took them there the first time and they were blown away completely. They were blown away. They said they had seen lands in different places in Epe, different parts of Ebejuleki, but there was nothing like Adiva. You see that 6-hectare lake in the middle of that development? That is like God-level development, to be honest, because you don't find any other developer giving out 6 hectares just for a lake.
And imagine
the lake doesn't even serve the developer. It serves residents. Now, every now and then when I drive into the estate, I see people just sitting there. Friends come around to visit someone. He takes his friends to go and sit by the lake. They're drinking beer. They're having a nice time. They're throwing 1 or 2 things in the lake. They're fishing. Sometimes people even fish there. I see people go there with books to read. I see ladies sometimes go like snacks, drink, and
picnic.
Just like a picnic. People go there in the mornings to meditate. I mean, it serves so many purposes. I feel like some of the things we do at Mixta, we don't
toot our own horns.
Yeah, we don't speak about them enough.
I agree.
Because till date, I'm yet to find another estate that has, a 6-hectare lake, in the middle of development. So moving on from that, and also, I have also seen Adiva, make a lot of people, create millions for a lot of people. I've seen people enter that project when we're selling for, very little prices. In fact, at the time, to show you how great a company Mixta is, a lot of staff were able to buy some portion of the estate, and some of them who have even sold have, turned the profit. So apart from the lifestyle benefits, even on the investment side, people have enjoyed very, very impressive returns investing in Adiva. And for Lakwe Lakes, which is the icing on our developments, Lakwe Lakes is a beauty to behold.
It is.
Every now and then you go online and you see someone who's by the cottage taking a picture and saying, "Oh, I was in Bali, Indonesia." Like, you were not in Bali, you were in Lakwe. I've also had clients from diaspora who had been marketing to, and they show up in Nigeria, they come down from their car, and the first thing one of them says was, "Wow, Ben, do you understand Yoruba?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He said, "It be by Joe Florida. It be by Joe Florida." I was like, "Oh, really?" I said, Nigeria is also a great place to invest.
Yeah.
And developments like what Mixta is doing really sends a signal to the international community that Nigeria is really a good place to invest.
It is.
At the end of the day, it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Mixta has never built anything that government ever demolished.
Yeah.
Because we always follow the right channels, and because, of course, visionary leadership, Tola, and all of the other amazing people, in senior management.
Okay.
Yeah. So moving on from that,
Ben just wanted to blow their horns a bit.
I wanted to mention that we do a very good job.
I agree. I agree. Honestly, I agree.
So Tola, you have led teams in Barcelona, in Spain, and now in Lagos. What would you say? What has your leadership experience been across these climbs, and where would you say you've had the most challenges, and where have you had it a lot easier in terms of managing your direct and indirect reports?
Oof. Okay, so first and foremost, leadership is a human activity, and humans exist in all areas. So one of the first things which I believe very much as a leader is that, look, the biggest mistake you can make is to assume that you know everything which the people you lead need.
Yeah.
And so for me, one of the things I've always done in all the teams I've been part of is to do, when I first come into a team, I do what I call a listening tour. Now, what am I doing under a listening tour? What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to know what are people's personal goals, what are their professional goals, what are their aspirations for the organization, what are they hoping that they'll be able to achieve within the context of the organization. Now, once I get that, then it gives me a better sense in terms of how I can align whatever is important to them to what it is that the organization. So let me give you an example. I remember when I took over in Senegal, and I went around, I did my listening to, and the way in which I do it is I meet with different team leads one-on-one. Just casual conversations. It's not like, okay, yeah, you have a sit down, okay, so I want to know everything on your mind. But just general conversation, and then from there you try to elicit it. I know some of the things I started finding out from one particular team leader was that, look, there were certain types of projects that they believed that it was time for Mixta in that country to evolve to start doing. So, hearing all those sorts of things tells me that, okay, this person would feel a stronger sense of pride, knowing that the company that she works in does this sort of project. So it helps me in terms of framing a vision and a direction for the team. The same thing applies to, there are different people. So, somebody wanted the opportunity to be able to head teams whereby he had the flexibility to define his time and define his results. Yeah, you find a way in which how you incorporate. So the most important thing I would say that has helped my leadership across, and let me just tell you, the biggest mistake I know I could have made when I was coming back to Nigeria is assume that simply because I was coming back to Nigeria, don't worry, we are Nigeria people, we understand each other. No, that was the biggest mistake. Because number one, I had been out of Nigeria for almost a decade. That's number one. Number two, within the group of people that I'm leading, I have multi-generations. Yeah. I'm someone who believes very much that you need to lead in line with the different generations that you have. Because each generation has what is important to them. So, for example, if you have baby boomers with you, it's completely different from what they want what millennials want, what Gen Z wants. But the basic thing, which is that, look, everybody wants to achieve their personal and professional goals.
Yeah.
Once you are able to tap into the zeitgeist of those two things, it becomes a lot easier for you to lead wherever it is, whether it's in Nigeria, Europe, any other part of the world, or different cultures. Yeah.
Okay, so still on leadership.
Yes, ma'am.
What did you get wrong, in being a leader? What did you get wrong about leadership and what corrected you? Maybe give us an instance or a story of what you've gotten wrong in leadership and what, kind of drew you back,
Question, how much time do you have? Okay, yeah. Because, if you want to talk about, I think one of the biggest things I struggled with as a leader was being able to give difficult feedback. Everybody likes to be a leader that everybody loves.
Yeah.
To be able to tell people, you're doing the best thing, all those sort of things. So I struggled with that in my leadership, being able to give difficult feedback. But I think one of the things that helped me to overcome that was realizing that I wasn't doing people favors by not giving them the difficult feedback.
Yeah.
So what's the worst that could happen if I give difficult feedback? Number one, the person decides he wants to leave the organization. So if the person leaves the organization and moves to another organization whereby he or she is able to use her skills better, it's worked out to the best of the person. Or the person or the other good side, the person changes and then he raises his or her game, and then it's to the benefit of the organization. Yeah. So, being able to just look at, okay, what's the worst that could happen? What's the best that could happen? It's helped me, but I'll tell you, I've made those blunders whereby I didn't give the necessary feedback that I needed to give at different points in time in terms of, okay, this is how your work is. It's not good. It's not good enough. It's not measuring enough. Yeah. So that would be one of my biggest mistakes that I made as a leader.
Okay. And then how would you say you build and motivate teams, especially for the fact that, different people bring different expectations and in their work, in their way of working? How do you motivate?
Well, the most important thing is to meet people where they are. So let me tell you a funny story. So I remember there was once upon a time that I had a team whereby I had two different types of personality. One person was very strong personality, the kind of person that, look, say whatever it is that needs to be said. You understand? That kind of thing. And then I had somebody else who was a bit of the more mellow kind of personality. You understand? Is not going to rock the boat, that sort of thing. So I remember there was a time in which I did the appraisal for the person who was the mellow and the quiet. And when I was giving the person appraisal feedback, according to her, when she saw her appraisal result, she said she was surprised because she actually thought because she was not the vocal kind of person that I wouldn't notice her work and then I would give her something a little bit lower. And I was like, no, I measure based on results and I can see that you are delivering results. You might not be the vocal person and everything. And by the time she was actually putting a comment to my, after you write the appraisal, the person has to put a comment. The person has said, thank you very much for introducing a result-focused orientation across the team. So for me, the way I look at it is that you have to focus mainly on the results and don't be too distracted by the personality that people bring. There are some people, they make plenty of noise and everything, but they don't deliver anything. So don't be distracted by all the noise and everything. Just have clear results. So for me, I've always believed that, look, before you start anything, be clear in terms of what the outcomes is. If during the period, if the outcomes change, then you both all need to agree on the outcomes that has changed. And, it reduces conversation in terms of having to explain each other.
Interesting. Interesting. So, I mean, from working across all of these different locations, what is, okay, two questions in one. From working across all these locations for the same company, Mixta Africa, and also knowing all of the things Mixta is working on currently, what do you think Mixta will be remembered for, long after, several years down the line? And for you in particular, who has been a leader in the business, who has led different people who are still with the firm, have moved on, what do you think your own legacy would be?
What would you want
kind
to
of
be remembered?
question is
Like
that?
if your name comes up,
What would you like to
Tola,
remember for?
like
No, there are
my
two
God,
things
Tola.
now. You have the one for the company, then you have the one for me.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm not the one that started the company itself, so I'm not.
No, so no, but in
Imagine.
10 years, what would you want
Yeah.
Mixta to actually be remembered for?
That's question A.
Okay.
Question B.
Question B is,
that will
okay,
come to
Tola has
question B.
moved on now.
Yeah. So
Like when Tola's name
Obviously,
comes
some
up.
people already have new jobs for me. There's okay, so let's.
Not in terms of no, what we're saying is that, of course, maybe when you're 70.
You're really trying to explain yourself. You're really trying to explain yourself.
But what would you like your name, like if they say Tola, what would you like that end of sentence to be?
Okay,
Tola is.
So let me start with the first part of the question.
Yeah.
Talking about Mixta.
Yeah.
So for me, the way in which I see the legacy that Mixta is trying to create is that you want a name that when people hear in the future, there's just this peace of mind that it gives. I'm sure for most of you are familiar with the Hebrew word shalom. Now, that shalom word, generally everybody talks in terms of peace.
Yeah.
But shalom goes beyond just peace. It's all-round wellness, inner vitality, and that sort of thing. So it sounds interesting for a real estate development firm that I'm saying that when people mention Mixta's name, what I want people to think about is to think about peace and all-round health. Now, the reason why I say that is that for me, I believe very strongly that the environment that you live has significant value in terms of the kind of lifestyle that you live. So let me give you a short story. So on Sunday, I ran into someone who used to work in one of the unicorn fintechs that you had in Nigeria, whose name shall remain quite unmentioned during the course of this conversation. And one of the things which she was saying was that the thing that she loved about Lakowe is that she liked coming to Lakowe. She actually said coming to Lakowe actually helped her to write her book. That while she was writing her book, she would just come to Lakowe. That whole environment just had a way of enhancing the whole experience. Now what she even does is she organizes now and again different retreats for different tech entrepreneurs and brings them to Lakowe to come and do the retreats that for the next 2-3 days, let's try to just bring ourselves back to normalcy. That's the sort of things I'm hoping for Mixta that, look, when people think about Mixta in the future, they think about peace of mind, that all-round lifestyle that, enhances good health and vitality. That's what I hope, people will think about Mixta when they think about Mixta in the future. To myself, interestingly, I think it was like a few years back, not a few years back, more than a decade actually. I was trying to, it was one of those years, I was trying to do goal setting for the new year. And honestly, I struggled with the typical goal setting practices that everybody says, you need to set goals, you need to do another. For some reason, I struggled. And that year, I just said that, look, I was going to develop a framework that works for myself. And so what I first did was I first decided I was going to script how my life was going to be. And so I told myself I was going to script the experience that people were going to have at my funeral. That I wanted my funeral to be filled with people who show up and say that, look, simply by knowing Tola, by experiencing Tola, they've become better people. And so really, that's really the legacy that I want to leave out, that, look, at any point in time, anybody that, even if it is a day, an hour, you have become better by experiencing me. So that's the legacy which I want to live by and be remembered for.
Mm.
That's really
deep.
interesting. Because even as people who work with you today, I think the open door policy, this is outside of company open door policy, the real open door policy,
Yeah.
which you have, which
Yeah.
allows people across different, cadres in the
Teams, yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
have access to you, relate to you on a personal level.
Yeah.
It
I'm
really just
fortunate
ties back
enough
to this.
to actually work under Tola, and I don't want to turn this. Tola's already looking at me like, I want to turn this podcast into tribute. No. But I'm fortunate enough to work under Tola, and I don't think anything that he has said here is short from what the type of person he is, honestly.
True.
So let me not speak too much on that.
all right. So I'm thinking now there might be, someone, a young Nigerian or young African who'll be watching this, and they're probably on the path to having, a very beautiful global career, which is pretty much what you've had. What advice would you give to that 25, 26, 28-year-old who is probably just employed with a foreign organization, or, is just on the cusp of landing that kind of job?
Yeah.
For someone who's about to build or who is currently building a global career, what's that one piece of advice that you think would make a whole lot of difference for them if they learned that early?
Yeah.
Be uniquely you. Now, that sounds like, the common things everybody says will be. But the reason why I tinted it as be uniquely you is the fact that, so I wrote a book, this was last year, Winning Beyond Borders, Achieving Success in a New Country, Achieving Success at Work in a New Country. Now, someone sent me a message. That's one of the things I like collecting people's stories and experiences. Someone sent me a message this September, and it was like, look, this month of September, ahead of a new session, I've actually been reading a chapter of your book literally every day. You understand? And she was like, oh, I'm on this chapter where it talks about realizing the fact that sometimes the people that are around you, the reason why they are a bit off, or they put barriers between you and themselves, is not necessarily because they don't like you. It's because they need time to be comfortable with you. And so she was like, from reading that chapter, she just told herself that, look, she was going to be more confident about who it is that she had inside of her. And when they become comfortable enough to come into my world, yes, I will bring them into my world, but I will not be afraid of or ashamed of what makes me uniquely me. Because one thing I found out is that what makes us uniquely us gives people an opportunity to experience life that they may never have experienced if they didn't meet you.
The original you.
Yeah. Because there are richness of culture that you bring. So let me give you an example. When we were living in Spain, one of our kids, we had one of our kids while we were living in Spain. And when we had our naming ceremony, we invited all our friends, including our Caucasian friends and everything. And so for them, it was a big of a surprise when, it got to the point whereby you do the naming ceremony, and then, you start reeling out all those names. That's the grandfather, the grandmother, and everything. So we started reeling out all those names. And then they were like, why do you have all these names? We explained all that to them. And then the next thing, we had to start telling them, like, oh, this name means this. This name means this. Every name. And then at some point in time, they gave me the baby, and I did the Rafiki pose. No, I'm joking. No, I didn't do the Rafiki pose. But, I had the point whereby I was praying over my kid and, prophesying over my kid, typical things that we do in Africa. And, for them, it was a whole new learning experience. And they appreciated a completely new cultural experience that they had never seen. And, I know some people, they get into those new cultures and they're basically trying to live out how people live out. Yeah. No, you don't have to. Just be uniquely you. Whether you're at work, whether in your neighborhood, be uniquely you. Because that richness, the depth of value and cultural experience and life that you carry would always attract the right set of people around you. And, I will tell you that, look, all the places that I've lived in, I've had the benefit of having deep friendships. Whether it's in Spain, whether it's in Senegal, I've had deep friendships. Till date, we still keep in touch. We still, you understand, when we still visit, we are like second family. So that's what I would tell to them, be uniquely you. Yeah.
Interesting. So you spoke about your book. Where can people who are interested in your book find a copy to buy?
Okay. You can find it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. Imagine it's now I'm making I'm making a commercial. I'm making a sales pitch. They should have told me that I was going to do sales pitch. Now I've told them, yeah, this is you see the QR road here, and they go to www.
You can send it to us. We'll put it
You
for
understand?
you.
So you can find it on Amazon. Okay, I don't know when this is coming on, but I actually did a promo not too long ago whereby I was actually giving free copies to people. All you had to do was pay for shipping everywhere. By the time this is going live, I'm sure that promo is off, but don't worry. You can reach out to these people. We'll try to see how it is we can do. Because I believe very much that Nigerians who have responsibility to export their value outside of the country, they need to learn, they need to do this. And that's the reason why I decided to do that free book offer to anybody who was in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Just pay for shipping, you get the book. Yeah.
Okay. And then aside from like your book, of course, that has like, I'm sure, gems that people can get. Do you offer like mentorship? All of those things. Maybe
Honestly,
for the 25-year-old that would want to go, like, move past their career and just,
Okay, so I actually do, basically I have a training and mentoring platform, Workplace Multipliers Business School. But just tell you, the simplest place you can find me is on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I typically post on housing, PPP, and winning the workplace. So those sort of 3 areas you would always find. So you can just find my name on LinkedIn, find content on that. And if you want to, from there, decide you want to engage with me a bit more closer, you can always find the links in any of those. So what I do is Mondays to Friday, I do sort of like daily mentoring emails that I send to people. So that's it.
That's good. I've seen that typically for all these managements, they have to get into this type of thing. I feel like it's just, do you think like all these big...
Yeah, I think they get
I have no idea what you just said.
I think they get to a point where they realize they have so much within.
Yeah, and they just want to
share.
give back to the...
Because I'm thinking, you've learned so much over the years.
So why not share
You've now poured it into a book. You paid to write the book, and you're now giving people the book for free.
And then you're now still doing mentorship.
Wow. That's amazing.
Can't wait to get there.
And you see, this is one of the beautiful things about the podcast.
Yeah.
So apart from even, interviewing all of these amazing guests we bring from time to time, every episode here, we are also changing in so many ways.
Yeah, we are. We are.
With every person we speak to, with all the gems we, pack out from every episode, I see us like, becoming better people.
Changers in our time.
Yeah.
No, honestly, I'm not even joking because like even in like referencing like things, when I was my first time, I interviewed this person, and this person said, So honestly, Tola, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
Grace our grace our podcast rather.
Yeah, before that, let him answer our final question.
Yes, now I was going there. Okay. So normally before we end the podcast, we like to do this thing. So where we say you give like your signing notes with like, so to be quite honest, I wish or something, just end.
I wish.
You could maybe give a gem, a knowledge, drop something.
Okay.
So to maybe like, to be quite honest, I wish more people knew about Mixta or something like that. So give us your own take on that.
Man, this is like hot seat moment.
Yeah,
like nobody prepared me for this. Now I have to think on the spot at the moment. So, to be quite honest, I wish more people had a positive outlook to life.
Don't leave me, Tola. Don't leave me.
Oh no, that was very nice. A positive outlook. I agree. I genuinely agree. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was lovely. We learned a lot about Mixta. And I feel like this particular episode, Ben, we're able to dive a bit more in knowing Tola as a person, genuinely. But yeah, it was nice to have you on. And until next time, we'll see you again. Signing out. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.